Coast. He actually stopped off in Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, good evening, everybody. Well, we're celebrating another championship in Boston. The Boston Red Sox victorious last night, taking down the LA Dodgers. You got to feel sorry for the Dodgers. It's 2 years in a row that they've got beat. Last year, the Houston Astros beat them. This year, it was the Red Sox. And, there's something about that Red Sox team. Like, they were down 4-0. It didn't seem to bother them. They still had a look of perseverance on their faces, and God, they played well. And some are speculating that's the best Boston Red Sox baseball team ever in the history. And we're going to be talking about that. Richard Johnson, who's the curator for the Sports Museum in Boston, he's going to be our guest on the second hour tonight, and that will come on about 7:15. Richard Johnson will be here, and they tell you there's nobody in New England that knows more about sports than Richard Johnson does. Our guest for the first hour tonight, that's going to be on in about 5 minutes. Since we're talking about baseball, we're going to talk about the Little Red Sox, the Pawtucket Red Sox, and they will be coming to Worcester. That's what the plan is, and we're going to be talking to Dan Rea Jr., who's involved with the Pawtucket Red Sox, and we're going to talk about their journey from Pawtucket to Worcester, Massachusetts. Hey, tonight is the drawing for the cake from the second-generation Italian bakery, LBD's. That's right, LBD's second-generation Italian bakery is kind enough to give us a 7-inch cake each month, and it goes to the winner of the anniversary or birthday for the month coming up. So we're still going to be taking calls tonight at 978-374-1900. In the second hour of the show, we will be picking out the name from the big cowboy hat, and we will be picking the winner who has a birthday or an anniversary coming up in the month of November. And you can just give that information to Chris, and you don't necessarily have to be that person to call in. You can call in for a friend, a wife, a husband, a lover, whoever you'd like. Just give us a call, 978-374-1900 here on WHAV 97.9 FM. Also, you can purchase raffle tickets here at the station. It's the Kiwanis Club of Haverhill. It's the third annual turkey drop, which will take place on Saturday, November 10th at 1 p.m., located at Murphy's Garrison Golf. And if you want to have an opportunity to win on this turkey drop prize, you can come here to the station. Tickets are $10, and remember that it will take place on Saturday, November 10th. It's the third annual turkey drop, and I know that idea came from WKRP. If you remember that show from way back when, they did the turkey drop, and it was quite a hilarious episode on that particular show. So, Kiwanis Club of Haverhill, the third annual turkey drop, and you can purchase tickets here at the station, and the station will be selling the tickets right up until the time that they do the drawing, which is Saturday, November 10th, so I would imagine probably up till Friday. And again, that will be taking place at Murphy's Garrison Golf. So a lot of big things coming up tonight. We're going to be talking a lot of baseball. We're going to lean away from the political scene, as we've been covering for the past several weeks, as we had the primary seasons come by, and now we've got the main election that's taking place on November 6th. So what we will be doing is discussing sports tonight, and we invite your calls at 978-374-1900. We're going to have Dan Rea Jr. from the Pawtucket Red Sox, which will be coming to Worcester, Massachusetts. And then in the second hour, we're going to talk to Richard Johnson. We're going to talk to him about the history of sports in Boston, all the Boston championships that have taken place over the past 15 years. And we're going to date back all the way to 1903, when the Red Sox won their first championship against Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Pirates, way back when, in the years of Babe Ruth when he came here, in the years when he left, and the curse of the Bambino that took place. We're going to take a short break, and then we will be back here on Open Mic Show at 978-374-1900, WHAV 97.9 FM.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495.
Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 FM WHAV.
Catch the wave! Melinda's Garden Moments help gardeners create and maintain a healthy, beautiful garden with ease, inside or out and all year long. This is Melinda Myers, inviting you to tune in every weekday morning, right here on WHAV. You'll learn creative ways to grow your own vegetables and herbs while beautifying your landscape. Eco-friendly lawn care, flower garden design basics, unique container gardens, attracting birds and butterflies to the landscape, and much more. Again, please join me weekday mornings for Melinda's Garden Moment for a very environmentally friendly approach to gardening. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Say Smith. Mercedes-Benz has for over 50 years. Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill offers new and certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz SUVs, crossovers, sedans, and coupes. And with its state-of-the-art sales and service facility, Smith is able to offer a different kind of customer experience unlike any other. Countless reasons, one choice. Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill at 420 River Street, routes 110 and 113. There's more on the web at onlymercedes.com.
Community Spotlight.
Haverhill's Council on Aging Walking Group invites locals to join its Tuesday morning walking group at Trinity Stadium. The group meets leader Sue Lagasse at 10 a.m. each week in the parking lot area between the stadium and the former Building 19 parking lot to the left of the stadium. Those interested in registering for the self-paced walking group can contact Kathy Bresnahan or Rita LaBella at 978-374-2390. Someone you know is on WHAV. To submit or read your own nonprofit announcement, click on the Contact tab at WHAV.net or email news@WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, I'm Eric Scott.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, 97.9 WHAV FM presents The Open Mic Show with Bill Masick. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
Again, we're back here in the Open Mic Show, just reminding you that tonight we will be doing the cake drawing for LBD's Second Generation Italian Bakery, located at 140 South Main Street in Haverhill, for the best Italian bakery products and custom-made wedding and birthday cakes. With all baking done on the premises, call them today, 978-241-9543. That's LBD's Second Generation Italian Bakery, located in Haverhill. We're talking baseball, and we have a gentleman on the line that knows probably more about baseball than probably 95% of people in New England, especially when it comes to Pawtucket Red Sox baseball. We have Dan Rea Jr. on the line. Good evening, Dan, and welcome to the Open Mic Show.
Good evening, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Well, Dan, a quick question. You got to be excited tonight. The Red Sox went in the World Series last night, and many players that played for the Red Sox came through Pawtucket on their way to Boston.
Yeah, they did, Bill. It's exciting, an exciting time for all of New England, I think, and I think we're all a little bit maybe sleep deprived, but certainly jubilant and excited, and to see guys who have come through Pawtucket and made their way up through the system. I think someone was saying earlier today that of the 25 guys on the World Series roster, 17 of those guys had come through Pawtucket at some point. So when you're talking about nearly 3/4 of your roster that's come through the minor league system and had a stint Pawtucket at least at some point, it's pretty special when you have a homegrown group like this, and also a special group of guys too. Really a world-class group of ball players, but a world-class group of people as well. So it's exciting for everyone, and certainly for those of us who have been fortunate to work with these guys and see them as they develop and make it up to the big leagues. It's very exciting.
Jan, the Red Sox did not seem to get rattled at all. Even when they were down 4-0, the perseverance of the team, it was like they weren't down. They were just going to keep doing what they were doing and try to win games. If you take a look at, they lost in the 18th inning of that third game, I believe it was, but they still kept coming back and coming back. And I tell you, the look on that team's faces, a lot of times you can tell by looking at a player's face on how much of their heart is in the game. Dodgers seem to have not that much heart in their faces, where the Red Sox did not seem to be rattled at all. Did you notice that?
I think this was a resilient Red Sox team, no doubt about it, Bill. I think you had a nice mix of the veterans, the wily veterans, I would call them, and then the young guys who weren't, overwhelmed by the moment. You had a guy like Rafael Devers, 21 years old, but he looked like he'd been there for years. And we had Rafael in Pawtucket for all of about 6 days. We called him up from Portland, thought we might have him for a few months last year, and then we pretty quickly realized that he was ready to go and contribute in the big leagues. And so you have this nice mix of, the seasoned veterans, the guys who have been there and performed on the big stage, but then young guys as well who have been there and look like they belong. So it was really a great mix, a well-built team by Dave Dombrowski and his team up in Boston. They did a really nice job of putting the right pieces into place, having a manager and Alex Cora and his coaching staff who really knew where and when to push the right buttons, and then the right group of guys who were resilient and ready to, fight back against any obstacles that came their way.
Now, Alex Cora's background, he was the bench manager last year for the Houston team, and then he gets pushed up right to the top level in Boston. A lot of people were critical of if that formula would work, but apparently it has. The Red Sox apparently saw something in him that they liked. What was it that, looking in retrospect, was probably one of his best characteristics to put him in that position?
I think you'd have to ask probably Dave and his team, his lieutenants, Brian O'Halloran and Eddie Romero, our assistant general managers in Boston. They did a great job of interviewing a group of candidates who brought different backgrounds and different perspectives to the table. But I think in Alex's case, he had, that recent perspective of a ball player. He was, a member of the 2007 World Series team. He had actually spent some time down in Pawtucket. So he'd seen, the major league and even minor league life from different perspectives and different vantage points not so long ago. And from everything, that went on this year, I think he showed an ability to relate to different types of players, to relate to the young guys, to relate to the veterans, to speak, to different guys in different ways and really connect with different guys, which I think is so important in this day and age. The X's and O's still matter. The tactical stuff, it still matters, but it's the interpersonal factors and dynamics, I think, that make such a difference with the best managers out there. And I think Alex, pushed every right button, knew how to connect with guys, did a great job just from start to finish of leading and connecting with this team.
Now, when they go from the minors to the majors, do they have to learn how to spit? I notice everybody's got a mouthful of birdseed or whatever that is, and constantly you watch that. I mean, that's. Does anybody? I have never seen anybody choke. I mean, they always have a. If it's not that, it's chewing tobacco.
Well, we hope more guys are doing sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds than chewing tobacco. But it's kind of one of those baseball traditions, I guess. We try to prepare guys in all facets. I don't know if a spitting course is part of it, but certainly having guys ready to go and ready to be big leaguers. Maybe we'll add chewing sunflower seeds to the docket next year, I guess.
Do you know how to do it?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. I guess that's one of the prerequisites for working in baseball, is learning how to chew sunflower seeds.
God bless you. That's tremendous. I always marveled at how they've always get the jaw always going up and down, and every other chew is something's coming out of their mouth. But so the Pawtucket Red Sox are coming to Worcester. When can we expect that to happen?
Yeah, so we're going to have a new ballpark open in Worcester in 2021. So we're here in Pawtucket for 2 more seasons. Continuing to play at McCoy Stadium here for the 2019 and 2020 seasons. And as we continue with that, we'll be building a new ballpark right in the heart of the Commonwealth, as we call it, the heart of New England in Worcester. And we're really excited. We're really excited to be building what should be a great AAA venue for the Boston Red Sox. You see what type of impact different guys have on the big league club, and having that really top-tier player development facility at the AAA level is so important, and I think really separates certain organizations from others. So with the Red Sox, we're excited to, open this new venue, this new AAA ballpark. as well as a ballpark that can be a great amenity for fans from around New England. So we're excited to get it going. 2021, it will be open, and we're ready to get that process going, get some shovels in the ground, and get on the way to 2021 here.
Well, I know the area that they're planning on putting it in, Kelly Square, and it's the city of Worcester, through private and state investments, is looking to have a $200 million infrastructure and changes in that area, and it's sadly it's needed in that area. Kelly Square, and I'm sure you probably visited the prospective site. Have you gone through that rotary?
We have, yeah. It's maybe the most interesting 8 or 9 way intersection in all of the Western world. So, when we looked at Worcester, with the city of Worcester and with the state of Massachusetts, we selected a site on sort of the edge of the downtown area. Worcester's undergone something of a renaissance in the last 5 to 10 years. You have a lot of new investment in the city, new hotels and residential buildings and commercial buildings that are popping up seemingly every day. And this is kind of I would say almost the final to-be-developed part of the Worcester downtown. It's got a really neat sort of bar and restaurant scene as part of what's called the Canal District, and we're sort of joining this great upward trend in the downtown and in the Canal District as a whole. And there are some infrastructure improvements that are needed because of that aforementioned rotary and some of the challenges of getting around the district. But the state of Massachusetts has stepped up to the plate. They're going to contribute a significant amount of funding to help improve this area. They might have done it, in any case, but they really saw the ballpark as a great vehicle to help them bring some new life and new vitality. And we always say that, we're a year-round business. We don't just play 5 months of baseball, but we do various off-season events. We try to do other sports, other activities at the ballpark. And we really see this ballpark as a sort of downtown asset for Worcester that can bring a lot of people into the city. And with those infrastructure improvements, really make this a vibrant downtown and one of New England's really up-and-coming areas.
Well, Worcester has a hockey team, and they have an indoor football team that just started back there this year. And I actually went to the opening first game for the Massachusetts Pirates. I don't know if you've ever been to one of those games, Dan, but they go about 300 miles an hour running to catch the ball, and there's boards. So the boards are padded, but believe me, they're smacking into those boards pretty heavily. And they do manage to get back up, and Massachusetts Pirates actually had a pretty decent year for their first year. So that would be great with baseball. They have indoor football. They have a hockey team that plays in Worcester. It's just adding to a city that you had mentioned over the past 5 to 10 years has seen a resurgence. And but the Pawtucket people, what did they do to try to keep the Pawtucket Red Sox in Pawtucket?
Yeah, we had I would say really a 3-year kind of effort, to see if there was a way to keep the team here in Pawtucket. We made a really, I think, concerted effort, and we had a site here right in Pawtucket that we really liked, working with the city of Pawtucket in the state of Rhode Island to forge a long-term partnership. And we've been here many years. We've been here since the early 1970s. Had a really sort of signature venue here at McCoy Stadium. Unfortunately, McCoy Stadium has a lot of problems with it. It's unfortunately leaking in many parts. It has a lot of damage. It has a lot of infrastructure work needed. So we knew early on that, unfortunately, staying at McCoy wasn't a terribly viable option for us. And we tried to kind of hammer out a framework to keep the team here, to build anew in a downtown Pawtucket location. And unfortunately, after more than a year of time spent sort of deliberating and talking about a proposal that we made, unfortunately we were sort of in I call it almost a limbo state. And we, went out to different communities and said, we're willing to listen to overtures and opportunities that might be elsewhere. And the city of Worcester and the state of Massachusetts just really stepped up in a significant way. Really made us an opportunity to build a great AAA ballpark for the Pawtucket Red Sox and by extension the Boston Red Sox. So that's the sort of long and short of how we've got to this point. And we've had a great affiliation here in Pawtucket for many years. We're at one end of the Blackstone Valley, and I like to say that we're going to be moving to the other end of the Blackstone Valley, but still a team in a part of New England where, people can get here to McCoy Stadium from different parts of New England, and we think that likewise in Worcester, we can get people from different parts of New England, whether they're from Connecticut, Rhode Island, north of Massachusetts, from the New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine areas. We want to be a New England, a regional team as we've always been, and do it in a really special way in the city of Worcester.
And located right off of Route 290, you have the Mass Pike below it. You get Route 2 right above it. You got 190. You have 495. There's so many venues or ways to get into Worcester and where the ballpark is going to be located. So that has to be a major plus. And technically, if you take a look at the map, it's basically almost in the center of New England or pretty close to it.
Yeah, like you said, I think it has really strong roads, and that was one of the things that really originally attracted us to Worcester. We again spent a good amount of time, trying to make it work here in Rhode Island. And when it was sort of stuck in neutral, we came out publicly and said that we were willing to listen to offers and opportunities. And we had about 20 different communities around New England come to us with interest in hosting the team. And so I think one of the things we did when we had those various overtures was to look at the different, strengths of the different cities and see what the different cities could offer us. And one of Worcester's real strengths was the strength of the roadways that bring people in from different parts of New England. And that's, I think a definite differentiator for the city of Worcester.
Dan, who were some of the other communities, the top 2 or 3 that were right behind Worcester in the fight?
I think Rhode Island made a good concerted push. Again, unfortunately, what happened in the sort of political wranglings here, unfortunately, kind of ground things to a bit of a halt. But we have a really good mayor here in Pawtucket who made a really strong effort, to keep the team here. They were one very strong contender. The town of Weymouth, Massachusetts, they've recently been in the news because they made us a pretty strong push down on the South Shore. We had a handful of different, medium and some larger scale cities that came out and made overtures and talked to us, because I think that the AAA affiliate of the Boston Red Sox is a pretty, viable asset for a community. So we heard good things from different areas and really, heard a lot of good overtures from different communities throughout New England.
Now, where was Weymouth looking to put their ballpark? By the old Air Force Base?
Yeah, right on the Air Force Base. They have a big development there, a sort of, a large mixed-use development, because that's, sort of the trend nowadays with new ballparks. These new ballparks aren't just, standalone ballparks in the middle of a cornfield. These ballparks are supposed to be
that make a good movie
for development. Yeah, it's not the Field of Dreams model anymore. It's really kind of building a ballpark that also has mixed-use development and things going on around it. And so one of the elements of our Worcester proposal right now is to build not just a ballpark in Worcester in the downtown area, but to put about 1 million square feet of mixed-use development that will be phased in around the ballpark over the next several years. So, we're excited about the fact that when you bring a ballpark into a community, you're not just putting in 10,000 baseball fans and 70 baseball games for a AAA team. You're also putting in the catalyst for hotel development, for residential development, for retail development. That's what these ballparks should do for communities when they're added to a downtown area.
That sounds like a great plan, and I'm very familiar with the city of Worcester, and I tell you, this is going to be a huge plus for that city in their rebirth. As you mentioned, the past 5 or 10 years, they've really changed that complexion of the city a lot, and this would be a major boost to it. Dan, we got to take a short break, and we'd like to talk to you on the well, we're at the bottom of the hour break. We'd like to talk to you back in a couple of minutes after the break, so I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about the Pawtucket Red Sox, if you could stay on the line with us. We're on Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
I said happy to stay on, Bill.
Well, I'm glad you actually are on, because I purposely put you on this time so you won't miss that other guy that's on the radio out of Boston show later on. We'll get into that in just a minute. You're listening to the Open Mic Show on WHAV 97.9 FM. You can call us at 978-374-1900. We have Dan Rea Jr. from the Pawtucket Red Sox with us here on the Open Mic Show. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a bit.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495.
It's 6:33.
Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system. This is 97.9 WHAV.
Paul Ryan, HHS class of 1971, and Tommy Morgan, HHS class of 2013, are good sports. They're on 97.9 WHAV FM every Wednesday night from 6 to 8. Ryan and Morgan talk about local high school sports, the Patriots, Red Sox, Bruins, Celtics, and more. You can join in with your calls. Good Sports is sponsored in part by attorney Gerard LaFlamme, Ideal Frame, Brian S. Dempsey Insurance Agency, Levitt's Auto and Truck, and The Chicken Connection. Good Sports every Wednesday night at 6 on the Wave 97.9 WHAV FM.
Say Smith. Mercedes-Benz has for over 50 years. Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill offers new and certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz SUVs, crossovers, sedans, and coupes. And with its state-of-the-art sales and service facility, Smith is able to offer a different kind of customer experience unlike any other. Countless reasons, one choice. Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill at 420 River Street, routes 110 and 113. There's more on the web at onlymercedes.com.
Wave weather.
Now your wave weather forecast for Haverhill in the Merrimack Valley. Upper 30s, partly cloudy skies, and about a 5 to 10 mile per hour northwest breeze tonight. Northwest near 8 to 16 tomorrow. Sunny skies, temperatures right around 50 degrees. Mostly clear, low 35 Tuesday night. And mainly sunny skies, highs around 57 for Wednesday. Your Halloween's looking pretty good. I'm WHAV meteorologist Brian Ivy. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, 97.9 WHAV FM presents The Open Mic Show with Bill Masick. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
And we're back here on the Open Mic Show. Bill Masick isn't here this evening. Bill is in Las Vegas, and I don't think it's a good trip. He did call me earlier this morning and asked me if I could go to Western Union and send him out a couple of $100. So I have a feeling that the poker tables have not been kind to Bill out in Vegas. No, actually, Bill's not a big gambler. He doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, and he never smiles. Maybe there's some correlation to that. We're back on the line with Dan Rea Jr. from the Pawtucket Red Sox, and Pawtucket is planning on coming to Worcester in 2021. Before we touch base on that, Dan, I'd like to talk to you about your dad. Your dad's involved in radio on WBZ out of Boston, and they had that show on the last time they were in the studio at Soldiers Field Road, and there were a lot of personalities that were involved with WBZ that came through WHAV in Haverhill. In fact, I think it was Gary LaPierre, I think, worked here for about an hour. He got fired.
No kidding.
Well, he screwed up an obituary. This is what the story of, if Tim Coco's listening, if he wants to drop his head in, Tim's the owner of the station, and Gary LaPierre was here, and he explained he stopped off in Haverhill for a cup of coffee, and then he was on his way, but you know, he made his way into Boston with 50,000 watts in 38 states, and I tell you, that has to be an ideal dream job for your dad, because I love listening to your father, and
it's kind of you to say. You know, my dad has enjoyed a very blessed career. He's been on the radio side of things for the last decade or so, and before that was on the TV side, and actually started his career in radio out of law school. So he has sort of come full circle and been able to work with some great people on the TV side. From Jack Williams and Liz Walker to Bruce Schwegler and Bob Lobel, and now getting to work on the radio side. He's worked with some great people there, like Gary and Gil Santos, the late great Gil Santos.
Yeah.
He's been very fortunate, and he'll be the first to tell you that he's had a fine career, and been blessed by a lot of great opportunities. So it's kind of you to say that about him.
Well, he is an inspiration to listen to, and a lot of his political views are aligned with my political views, so it makes it a whole lot more pleasurable when I listen to a station that doesn't have my taste in politics. My lips bleed from biting. So
he's never been a wilting flower. He's always ready with an opinion. But he also, I think, tries to allow different parts of the spectrum to speak on different issues and let the debate always be, a good one, a respectful one. So he's, I think, pretty proud of the fact that they were able to strike that tone and strike that balance in this day and age.
He is good. He is fair, and he does let both sides air whatever their beliefs are over the radio. Well, we're getting back to the Paw Sox, and I had sent you an email. They're calling it War Sox. I don't like that name because the war could be confused for WAR. I would think that a good term would be I'm a Soxter. What do you think, Dan?
It could be a good contender. What we're probably going to do here in the near future, different nominations has been one. The Woo Sox, WOO is another that we've seen a little bit on social media. Your suggestion, what we'll probably do is have some sort of, almost like a naming contest, and let people come up with a series of suggestions, enter your suggestion and other ones, and really let people, make the nominations, let the people decide. Because I think one of the great things about baseball is that names sort of develop in an organic fashion. The Brooklyn Dodgers, the LA Dodgers, they weren't the Dodgers because some, owner back in the 1900s bestowed that name upon them. They sort of took that name over the years because initially they had people in Brooklyn who were dodging the trolleys, and so they became just sort of organically known as the Trolley Dodgers, and then for shorthand, the Dodgers. So I think one of the cool things about baseball and sports in general is the fact that sometimes these nicknames just sort of evolve, and you like to see that evolution rather than sort of top-down imposition of what we want or think is the right thing. So I like the nomination. We'll throw that into the mix and probably have a good contest to see, which one emerges as the right one for us and what will be called exactly. The doing business name might be the Worcester Red Sox, but what the shorthand nickname becomes, I think, remains to be seen, and that'll be a lot of fun to figure that out.
Well, I think Soxter would be good, and let me know when you're going to do it, because I'm going to have it patented, and then I can sue you. but it's funny.
Those IP rights, those are key.
when you mentioned about the Dodgers, and trolley Dodgers and so forth, I just had an image of Kelly Square and the way the rotary is. We could call that Kill You Square. Because there's several times I've entered that rotary, and it is right. There's about 9 different ways you can enter it and leave, and I've had my mind on going in one direction, but you're confronted by trucks and so forth. I ended up pulling off to the side to get someplace else, and I'll take the long way around. And my GPS will always come on and say, "I don't blame you."
Yeah, no, it's an adventure there, and one of the locals early on told me. He said, I've been here for decades. I grew up here. I've been here for decades. Here's my advice. I've never had an accident. I just go into the square. I don't look at anyone. I just kind of gun it, and I go right through, and I've never had a problem. So
that's the secret.
There are different ways to do it, navigate, but it can be treacherous for those of us who don't have experience in it.
Yeah, that's the secret. You don't look at the other driver, so they think, "What's this jerk? He's not even looking," and then they'll press their brake and let you go through.
Exactly.
Well, the Red Sox in their World Series game the other night went 18 innings, but that could probably have been considered the 7th inning stretch when the Pawtucket Red Sox played the Rochester Red Wings many, many years ago. You're familiar with that game, Dan?
Yeah, I wasn't with the Paw Sox at the time. It was a few years before I was born. But yes, back in our early heyday, we had this famous 33-inning game against the Red Wings, a legendary game, which, when you think about that 18-inning game for all of us who stayed up and how extracted a game that was, it's crazy to think that was barely halfway to the record of 33 innings set by the Paw Sox back in 1981. So it's, a record that they always say, will this record be broken? Will that record ever be broken? I think we can safely say the 33-inning record may never be broken in all professional baseball.
Well, I tell you what was funny is they actually finished the game, about a month and a half after they had gone so many innings. I think there was a big time frame between when they stopped playing and then when they continued it. I think it was. I think I remember
5.
reading that.
According to legend, there were players who came home and their wives, said you couldn't have been out at a ball game. You must have been out all night at the bars. We're not letting you in the door. And our famous manager Joe Morgan, who I'm sure you know, famous Walpole Joe.
Yeah.
He was our manager at the time, and as the story goes, he was thrown out pretty early in the game of the 33-inning game. So he went back into the clubhouse, and there was a little kind of peephole that he could view through the clubhouse doors out into the field. And so as it gets late into the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, all of a sudden there's a ringing of the phone down the hallway in the offices. So Joe goes down to answer the phone because he's not doing anything else at the time, and it's his wife, Dottie, who says, "Joe, why are you answering the phone at the offices?" And Joe says, "Well, we're still playing the baseball game out there, Dottie. It's the 28th or 29th inning." And Dottie says, "Well, if you're playing the baseball game, why are you answering the phone right now?" So, one of those great legends about McCoy Stadium and the Paw Sox and how that 33-inning game all transpired.
I don't understand why wives aren't trusting it. I had a friend of mine that I went to the races with in Skowhegan, Maine, and he never told his wife where he was going. And in the next morning, he left before she got up, and he never saw his horse trainer when he was there. So when his horse trainer called his wife in the morning and said, "I want to let Ron know how his horse did." "Oh, okay, I'll let him know." So he comes home that night from work, and she said, "Where were you last night?" He said, "I went to go see the horse race." She goes, "No, you didn't, because the trainer called up to tell you how the horse did." So I asked him, I said, "Will she be mad at you?" He goes, she'll get over it in about 20 years. But anyways, we talked about people that can't come through the system, but we have a call we want to take first. And I have my producer, Chris, is going to tell me exactly how to do that. And we have a caller on the line. Caller, you're on the line here in the Open Mic Show. We have Dan Rea Jr. as our guest. Good evening.
That's wonderful, gentlemen. That's wonderful. I've been on Dan Rea's program a few times. Not too many times because my specialty is the environment. And, he hasn't had much in that relative to that subject. But he talked about his son at Pawtucket Red Sox. He's talked to him about him many times, and I was just interested. I'm so pleased that Pawtucket is. Apparently, Pawtucket's going to go to Worcester. Is that correct?
Yes. Can you hear the caller, Dan?
I had a little bit of difficulty hearing that, Bill. Do you mind repeating the question there from the caller?
Repeat the question, Jerry.
Basically, I'd just like to say hello to Dan Rea's son because he speaks to him from time to time on his show about his son being the manager of the Pawtucket Red Sox, and I understand it's going to happen that they will be going to Worcester, and that'd be wonderful. Centrally located. It's only about an hour or so, a little over an hour to get to Worcester. I used to travel it to work, just about every day.
But the Dan, Jerry was talking about how it's good the Red Sox, Pawtucket Red Sox, are coming to Worcester. Now, Jerry's little background is Jerry was involved with the DEP, and your forte, I guess, Dan, was water?
Yeah. My specialty is the environment, and Dan, never had too many stories on about interest in the environment. So I didn't really go on too many times, but it was always about something in the environmental field. But he talked often of his son and the Pawtucket Red Sox. And is it going to happen? Is the Pawtucket going to be in Worcester?
Yes, Pawtucket Red Sox will no longer be called Pawtucket. They'll be called the Worcester Red Sox, and hopefully they'll be setting up shop in 2021. Jerry, thank you very much for calling in. And we're speaking to Dan Rea Jr. here on the Open Mic Show. And the number here is 978-374-1900. Again, 978-374-1900. As I mentioned, Jerry, I mentioned Dan, that Jerry worked for the DEP for many, many years, and he is a constant listener, which is great, on the WHAV Open Mic Show. And he always talks about the Merrimack water, which is going to lead me into the next subject, which is going to be Boston's water, and Love That Dirty Water. Dan, can you tell me who sang that song? What's the group's name?
I believe that's the Standells, correct?
Oh, congratulations. You're right. And where were the Standells from?
That is Rhode Island, I'm going to guess?
I think they were from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, okay.
And if that's the case, that's kind of ironic that the Red Sox would beat the Dodgers from a song that they kind of associate themselves with that Love That Dirty Water, which
quite ironic.
That is a great song. But Dan, back to the Pawtucket Red Sox coming to Worcester. Now, they're selling bonds to the stadium. If they do not raise enough money, what happens about the move?
Well, I think we'll raise enough money, Bill. It's sort of a pretty standard, conventional municipal bond sale, the one that we're engaged in. What you have right now across minor league baseball, you have basically 160 teams across minor league baseball from New England to Southern California, and the vast majority of ballparks in minor league baseball are publicly owned ballparks, built with a combination usually of public and private funding. And these sorts of public municipal bond offerings are pretty standard, pretty conventional. The rates and the offerings are pretty standard of what you'd see in the different bond markets. So we're going to have about $80 million of bond proceeds that are generated by a combination of both our rent that we're paying as tenants of the ballpark, and then also tax revenues that our project generates. And so our project, we like to say, is a revenue positive deal. There are no existing tax monies being used. It's all purely revenues from the project itself. And those revenues will go to pay back the bonds, and we'll then have a ballpark that can be, a really catalytic financial generator for the city of Worcester. So we're, I think, excited about the fact that this is a safe, well-structured deal that makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox. It makes a lot of sense for the city of Worcester. It makes a lot of sense for the state of Massachusetts. It really is a win-win-win for us.
That's a good thing. I tell you, again, we mentioned about the revitalization of Worcester, and this is going to be a huge boost for that city located in central Massachusetts. We're going to take a short break, Dan, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about some of the Red Sox that made their way through Pawtucket on their way to the Bigs in Boston. You listen to WHAV 97.9 FM. This is the Open Mic Show here with Bill Ellis, filling in for Bill Masick.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495.
If you want to know what's going on at WHAV, sign up for the free monthly Wavelengths newsletter online at WHAV.net.
Catch the wave!
Suspense, a weekly anthology of notable melodramas from stage and screen, fiction and radio, presented every Monday night to bring you to the edge of your chair, to keep you in suspense. Listen to the new Suspense with a company of Hollywood actors and surprising guest stars, Monday nights at 10, with encore performances at 1 a.m., right here on WHAV. Remember, only local radio can bring you this feature opportunity, but only WHAV does.
Say Smith. Mercedes-Benz has for over 50 years. Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill offers new and certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz SUVs, crossovers, sedans, and coupes. And with its state-of-the-art sales and service facility, Smith is able to offer a different kind of customer experience unlike any other. Countless reasons, one choice. Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill at 420 River Street, routes 110 and 113. There's more on the web at onlymercedes.com.
Catch the wave, WHAV. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, 97.9 WHAV FM presents The Open Mic Show with Bill Masick. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
We're back here on the Open Mic Show here on WHAV 97.9 FM. Bill Masick is in Las Vegas this evening. Hopefully he is enjoying himself. And this is Bill Ellis filling in. And we have Dan Rea Jr. from the Pawtucket Red Sox on the line. So, Dan, if I mention names like John Valentin, Jason Varitek, Mo Vaughn, Tim Wakefield, David Wells, Kevin Youkilis, you'd say that they were players that played for the Boston Red Sox, but they also made their way through Pawtucket. So folks have a chance to watch tremendous AAA ball players play, many of them that either on a rehab assignment or on their way up to big leagues.
Yeah, we've had a pretty special lineage, I would say, of guys who have, spent time in Pawtucket. For some guys, it was, a few weeks or months, and other guys, Mo Vaughn, for instance, was an all-star player, an MVP, caliber guy when he was with the Boston Red Sox, but he spent, I think, parts of 3 seasons in Pawtucket getting ready and waiting for his opportunity. So it's pretty cool when you can look through the history and you can see the guys, from those who played in the early 70s, like, Jim Rice and Fred Lynn and Dewey Evans, to guys from the 80s like Boggs and Clemens, stars in the 90s, Nomar, Mo Vaughn, John Valentin, like you mentioned, and then the more recent guys, the John Lesters and the Jacoby Ellsburys and the Mookie Bettses and the Xander Bogaerts. It's pretty special when you can point to the fact that, basically any homegrown guy in a Red Sox uniform of the last 40 or 50 years has come through Pawtucket. That's a pretty special, I think, relationship that the Paw Sox and the Boston Red Sox enjoy that's unlike probably any other in baseball.
There was another player that came through, and he's a kid that came from Massachusetts, Mark Fidrich.
Yes, the Bird who had I think the most well-attended game in Paw Sox history. He faced off against Dave Righetti, who everyone knows, the great Yankees pitcher. They had a game at McCoy Stadium in the late 70s, early 80s. I think brought in, well north of 10,000 people. So it's moments like that that have, such resonance in Paw Sox and Red Sox history. When you can talk about a signature character like Mark the Bird Fidrich and talk about his place in Paw Sox history, it's pretty cool stuff.
Looking at Mark when he played baseball, he didn't seem to be too well mentally balanced. It seemed like he had a relationship with the baseball.
He talked to the baseball, but, from everything, and unfortunately he's since passed away. He had a tragic, I believe, farming accident a few years back, and unfortunately passed away, much too soon. But from everything I've heard, he was a, really kind of a unique character, a very crafty, smart pitcher who had these, kind of unique eccentricities. But it worked for him, and he was very successful, in his day, and had a pretty impressive career when you look at it. So whatever works, if you need to talk to the baseball or do other things on the mound, the baseball players can be superstitious and idiosyncratic, but whatever works if you get the outs and you make the plays.
I think there was another pitcher. I think he maybe played for Kansas City, Al Hrabowski. Does that name ring a bell?
It does, yes. Another one of the famous characters of baseball. I think baseball has colorful folks like no other sport in many ways.
And probably one of the top notable characters has to be Bill Lee.
Oh, the spaceman. We still see Bill a lot at Fenway Park and at McCoy Stadium. He comes down and he has a bat company he works with. He bottles wine nowadays. He's a definite character and a pretty fun guy to be around.
Yeah, he is interesting. I've seen different clips on TV, and I tell you, he's fun. It's interesting, and Boston has had their share in many of the sports of characters and basically characters, the way they played the game and their little idiosyncrasies. Now, quick question on the ballpark. What are some of the other activities do they plan on using the ballpark in Worcester for?
Yeah, well, at McCoy Stadium the last few years, what we've tried to do is add more other events. We've tried to add, other sports, other concerts. We just had a concert in late September where we had about 8,000 or 9,000 people to see a guy named Macklemore, who's a popular kind of contemporary hip-hop artist. So in the new ballpark in Worcester, we try to have, a lot of concerts, other sports, whether you're talking about football games, soccer games, lacrosse, hockey games even, putting a rink out in the field. And then doing what really Fenway Park has done these last several years, which is hosting other types of events, other types of festivities. We want to host weddings and birthday parties and corporate meetings and bar mitzvahs and, really make this ballpark in Worcester a year-round catalyst that brings people to Worcester 12 months a year, around the calendar for different purposes. You don't have to be a diehard baseball fan to enjoy Fenway Park nowadays, and we want the new ballpark in Worcester, which we're going to be calling Polar Park for Polar Beverages. We want Polar Park to be a similar year-round catalyst for folks.
Well, it'd be perfect then. Polar Park be used for a January 1st game like they have at the Major League Baseball parks where the NHL comes in. That would be great. Well, it looks like it's something that is great things happening on the horizon for the city of Worcester, which calls himself Wormtown or whatever. WORM. It's hard for me to pronounce warm or. So I'm from Boston, and I sometimes I don't understand some of the dialect that comes out of the city of Boston, but Wormtown, WRMTOWM, and I hope they don't get anything with the Wormtown, because isn't there an expression in baseball, a worm burner?
Yes, there is. Yeah. The famous, that sharp ground ball can be a worm burner. So that is a baseball expression.
Well, Dan, we'd like to have you back on as we get closer to the big day in 2021. And I think that is a tremendous thing for the city of Worcester and for the state of Massachusetts to have AAA baseball come to the Bay State. And I'm sure you'll be welcome with open arms in the city of Worcester. We've had Dan Rea Jr. on the line. He's from the Pawtucket Red Sox, and Pawtucket is planning on coming to the city of Worcester in 2021. Dan, thank you very much, and we wish you all the success.
My pleasure, Bill. Thanks for the kind words, and look forward to joining you guys again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dan. All right, we're here in the WHAV 97.9. This is the Open Mic Show. We're going to take a short break, and we come back. We're going to play a little clip from War of the Worlds that took place on October 30th, 1938. And then we got another sports personality that will be coming on board, and it is Richard Johnson. He's the curator for the Sports Museum, New England Sports Museum, located in Boston. You're listening to the Open Mic Show. This is Bill Ellis filling in for Bill Masick, and we'll be back here in just a bit.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495.
It's 7:01.
WHAV LP Haverhill.
Here's what's happening in local news. The city's Conservation Commission has given the go-ahead for a new solar energy array in Haverhill. On Thursday, the commission held a public hearing to discuss the array, which is being proposed for 1037 Broadway. Commissioner Ralph Basilier, community liaison, said the project will generate 250 kilowatts of energy and is expected to be completed by fall 2019, following 3 to 5 months of construction. This is the fifth solar project to be based in Haverhill. Basilier spoke highly of the company constructing the project, Hexagon Energy, saying it's gone above and beyond to work around buffer zones and provide screening options for neighboring residents, although the project is largely outside wetland buffers. As Mayor Fiorentini has expressed interest in clean energy for Haverhill, as well as participation in the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target Program, Basilier said the project meets city objectives, saying, "We're definitely pro-solar." Several residents expressed their concern over the project during the meeting. Basilier said neighbors of the project's lot feared the impact the array would have on wetlands and how it would affect their view of the neighborhood, Basilier said. A number of neighbors made it very clear they do not want to see solar panels. However, Basilier reminded residents that complaints of obstructed views falls under zoning and not the Conservation Commission's concerns. With support from the Commission, Hexagon Energy must next go before the Board of Appeals before having its plan approved. No more payments are being made to a school food service provider until Haverhill City Councilors retroactively approve a 5-year contract with the company. Councilors are being asked to authorize Mayor Fiorentini to enter into the contract with Islandia, New York-based Whitson's New England, even though the firm has been on the job since 2014. Although the school committee approved what has now been deemed a 5-year contract with Whitson's, the city council was not asked to sign off on it as required by state law. As WHAV first reported October 11th, a review by the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials found contracts in excess of 3 years without city council approval. In an opinion issued Thursday, city solicitor William Cox agreed. After a diligent search of schools and city records, we have not been able to locate any confirmation that such authorization was provided. It's my opinion that this contract is not compliant with the requirement of state law, he wrote to the mayor, school committee, and city council. Whitson's was originally granted a 1-year contract beginning July 1st, 2014, with the right to renew for 4 more years. Cox said state bid law would call that a 5-year contract. Cox added school business manager Brian O'Connell has advised he'll seek new bids in time for the start of schools next year. O'Connell was not working for the city when the Whitson's contract was negotiated. Unlike the food service deal, Cox said councilors approved 5-year contracts for school busing. The city retained Coppola and NRT Bus during July 2011. Those contracts called for 5-year terms with the right to renew for 2 more 3-year periods. Besides the food service program, councilors will take up discrimination, finances, and hunting. Question 3 on the November 6th ballot could possibly repeal an existing law prohibiting discrimination in public accommodations on the basis of gender identity. At the request of resident Nicholas Golden, the council plans to discuss a resolution in favor of the Yes on 3 coalition supporting the 2016 law. Superintendent Margaret Marotta briefs the council on the financial operations review provided by the Massachusetts Association of School Business Officials in Hopkinton. The review covers data collected by officials over a 2-year period and provides advice on what school officials can do to improve the district. Councilors Melinda Barrett and Joseph Bevilacqua have invited Maria Zangari to attend the meeting in order to discuss illegal hunting concerns in the Atlanta Street area.
Business Bulletin.
A recycling company working with Haverhill to convert food and farm waste into energy formally opens its doors this week with a ceremony involving state officials. Vanguard Renewables of Wellesley, which built an anaerobic digester to create energy from decaying wastes at Crescent Farm, is holding a tour of the facility November 2nd. There'll also be several speakers, including Vanguard Chairman and CEO John Hanselman, Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources Commissioner Judith Judson, and Massachusetts Clean Energy Center CEO Stephen Pike of Haverhill. The Massachusetts Clean Energy Center granted Vanguard $500,000 during May 2017 to help fund the project. The digester takes the methane from the decaying waste and fuels a generator at Crescent Farm, producing roughly 1 megawatt of energy for the farm. This particular digester also accepts waste from Cedars Mediterranean Foods, Cabot Creamery, and Whole Foods. The project has been under construction since mid-2017. Vanguard has also been recognized by the National Waste and Recycling Association with the 2018 Organics Recycler of the Year Award. The association has granted Vanguard the award due to the contributions they've made to protect the environment and advance the waste and recycling industry. Remember, WHAV is the only Haverhill-based news source. There's always more at WHAV.net. From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, I'm Eric Scott.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. At least 6 bodies have been recovered from the crash site after an Indonesian passenger plane crashed into the sea near Jakarta early Monday. Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel has announced she will step down as head of her party. And a suspicious package addressed to CNN has been intercepted in what appears to be the latest explosive mailing found in the U.S.
Wave weather.
Now your wave weather forecast for Haverhill in the Merrimack Valley. Upper 30s, partly cloudy skies, and about a 5 to 10 mile per hour northwest breeze tonight. Northwest near 8 to 16 tomorrow. Sunny skies, temperatures right around 50 degrees. Mostly clear, low 35 Tuesday night. And mainly sunny skies, highs around 57 for Wednesday. Your Halloween's looking pretty good. I'm WHAV meteorologist Brian Ivy. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
Your membership enables WHAV to remain local and independent. Consider joining at WHAV.net. Broadcasting on the Armstrong FM system, this is 97.9 WHAV.
Catch the wave, WHAV, Merrimack Valley. Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, 97.9 WHAV FM presents The Open Mic Show with Bill Masick. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
And it's the Open Mic Show here on WHAV 97.9 FM. You can call us at 978-374-1900. And we're going to be doing the drawing for the cake this evening, and we're going to be doing it in the next couple of minutes. The cake is brought to you by LBD Second Generation Italian Bakery, which is located on 140 South Main Street in Haverhill. For the best Italian bakery products and custom-made wedding and birthday cakes, with all baking done on the premises, you can call them at 978-241-9543. And the winner for the November birthday or anniversary is, let me pull out the hat here, the big cowboy hat, and I reach in and I grab the name of Christine, looks like Tedisco of Salem, New Hampshire. Christine, looks like Tudisco, Tedisco. That'd be a nice thing like Karen Donna Summer there, Tedisco music. But Christine Tedisco, you are the winner of the cake from LBD's Second Italian Generation Bakery, Second Generation Italian Bakery, located on 140 South Main Street in Haverhill. Also want to remind you that you can purchase your tickets for the Kiwanis Club of Haverhill, the third annual turkey drop, which takes place on Saturday, November 10th at 1 p.m., and that's at the Murphy's Garrison Golf, where the drawing will be taking place. You can come here to WHAV, and it's $10 per ticket. And they'll be helping out the folks at the Kiwanis Club of Haverhill. And it is, the third annual turkey drop located at Murphy's Garrison Golf, and it will be taking place on Saturday, November 10th at 1 p.m. We're getting something on our news feed right now. We're going to pick that up. Chris, if you could put that on for us.
Humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from that mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks of the automobiles spreading everywhere. Coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
In 1938, Orson Welles with the Mercury Theater put that on. It's called War of the Worlds, and you'll be having an opportunity to be able to listen to it tomorrow night at 10 p.m. It is the air presentation of War of the Worlds here at 97.9 FM, and Tim Coco had permission from the Peter Koch, who now holds his father's script, and his father was the one that put that all together. And that was very controversial. There was a lot of talk about that after it was done. In fact, the Haverhill Gazette even talked about it. We call it the night that the Martian death ray missed Haverhill. Grover's Mills, New Jersey, was apparently the site where the Martian landing took place. And also on Halloween night, Wednesday, October 31st, WHAV airs the Chasing Sanborn Hour with Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy at 10 p.m. And again, that will be repeated at 1 p.m. So if you want to listen to the War of the Worlds or listen to the Chasing Sanborn Hour with Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy, listen right here in 97.9 FM WHAV. We're back going to talk about sports, and probably the guy that knows more about sports than anybody else in New England, or probably on the East Coast, is on the line with us. We have Richard Johnson, the curator from the Sports Museum in Boston. Good evening, Richard, and a good evening it is, because we have another World Series title on our lapels or on our record books to air tonight. How are you doing tonight?
Well, thank you for the kind introduction. When I heard the sound effects to start off there, I thought it was the Boston reaction when Craig Kimbrell was beginning to warm up again in the bullpen. But no, we are very happy here. We're slightly sleep deprived, of course. The entire New England area is, especially for those of us that stayed up until 3:27 a.m. on Saturday morning to watch the conclusion of that heroic effort by Evaldi. But what a year it's been for our team. I mean, 119 wins.
Yeah,
I mean only Toledo. That's as close to perfection as you can get in baseball. Obviously, you can't go undefeated for an entire season, but this is a little bit as though the 2007 Patriots had completed, the mission and had gone 17-0. I mean, they're really 119. You think of that number, 119, and
that's a lot of wins.
Wow.
Now you mentioned Holy Toledo. Could you name me a famous baseball team from Toledo?
The Mud Hens.
The Mud Hens, and there was a TV character that idolized the Mud Hens. Do you remember who it was?
Yeah, Jamie Farr.
Yeah, Klinger.
MASH, absolutely.
See, Richard, I can't get by you. I'm going to ask you a trivia question. We're going to go back to what we just talked about. Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. When the Edgar Bergen received, I think it was an Oscar or an Emmy. I think it was an Oscar. It was presented to him, but it wasn't. It was a different makeup of the Oscar itself. Do you remember? Do you know what the consistency of the item was of the Oscar?
It was probably carved of wood.
You're right again. It was wood.
Absolutely.
Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen. I'm going to throw another question at you. This is a test. If you can get this right, I will buy you lunch.
Oh boy!
All right. I'm going to name a famous Abbott and Costello. Who's on first?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to ask you some of the other positions. If you guess it right, I'll buy you lunch. You ready?
Yeah.
Who was on second?
I don't know.
No, he was third base.
He's third. See, this is going to be tough, yeah. All right, I've already struck out on this one. So.
Yeah, left field was why, center field because, the pitcher was tomorrow. Who was the catcher?
Today.
That's right. Today, and the shortstop was I don't care, or I don't give a darn. So, that was a great routine.
And the fact is that you go online, and there actually was a player, I believe, from Korea, named H-U, and there's a picture of him standing at first base.
I've seen that photograph. That is
I'm sure
funny.
It's a T-shirt now, you know.
Who was actually on first?
Was on first.
So we're going to take a short break at 7:15. Richard, we got a lot of things to talk about, basically about Boston sports and the Boston Red Sox. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll be right back here in the Open Mic Show here in WHAV 97.9 FM.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495.
Try listening to WHAV in your car or anywhere on your mobile phone. For fast access, visit WHAV.net.
Catch the wave!
On air or online, 97.9 WHAV serves you. Twice an hour weekdays, keep up to date with exclusive local news and weather. Find out about civic events on Community Spotlight every quarter hour. And better prepare with WAVE weather every 30 minutes. Mass moments, Melinda's Garden Moment, Soundbeat, and Insight Daily complete the spectrum. Hear classic comedy and drama 7 nights a week at 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. Finally, a unique blend of rock and roll hits from the 60s, 70s, and 80s round out the entertainment. Stay with 97.9 WHAV, the only behavioral-based news source.
Community Spotlight.
Can't snag tickets to the Boston Pops holiday concert in the city? The Keith Lockhart-led orchestra is coming closer to home for a December 16th matinee performance at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium, and the Merrimack Valley Chamber of Commerce has tickets at a reduced group rate. Enjoy the 2 p.m. concert for $79.99 by reserving a non-refundable ticket from the Chamber no later than November 12th. For more information, call 978-686-0900. Submit your own nonprofit events and announcements at least 3 weeks in advance. For best results, use the online form under the Contact tab at WHAV.net. In the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, I'm Eric Scott.
Open mic.
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, 97.9 WHAV FM presents The Open Mic Show with Bill Masick. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
And we're back here in the Open Mic Show on WHAV 97.9 FM. Bill Masick is vacationing in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this is Bill Ellis filling in. Well, we have Richard Johnson on the line. Richard is the curator for the Sports Museum in Boston, and we just did a little trivia with Richard, and he's pretty good at it. But this is a question we asked Dan Rea Jr. from the Pawtucket Red Sox, which I know you know very well, Richard. He got the question right. Now it's up to you. The song, Love That Dirty Water, what was the name of the group that recorded it?
The Standells,
And where were they from?
California.
Los Angeles. Isn't that ironic? We just beat the Dodgers, and a group from L.A. was the one that recorded that?
Well, you know, the story about that song apparently is the guy that wrote it was their producer, okay? And he had an incident with a mugger in Boston.
I don't believe it.
He and his girlfriend, I don't think they got mugged, but they were accosted. That inspired the song.
Now, where were they? Down by the old combat zone?
I think they're walking along the Charles.
Yeah.
You know, on the Esplanade.
Well, you know, as a young boy going into Boston, I was quite naive. I walked through the combat zone. I didn't realize what it was, and I had many women coming up asking me if I wanted to go on a date, and I said, "Geez, I must be kind of a good-looking guy." But I was in a hurry, though. I had to get to Filene's basement.
Good.
So we're going to talk baseball. The Red Sox have been in 13 World Series, and Richard, 9 times they've been victorious. That's actually a very good percentage.
Well, it's a great percentage, and God, how many times did they go to Game 7 and lose? I think it was every other time, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
So you have 1946, Slaughter scoring from first. You have 1967, Bob Gibson.
And both those were St. Louis Cardinals.
Both those are the Cardinals. We have 1975 with the Reds and the Ephus pitch to Tony Perez. We have 1986 and the heartbreak of, those 2 games at Shea Stadium. So you have 7-game series in the other 4.
And Buckner was the 7th game?
No, that was Game 6. And of
okay.
course, they had the Sunday off due to rain, and then the big debate was whether it would be Oil Can Boyd or Bruce Hurst to pitch Game 7.
Okay, and what
was interesting about each of those 7-game losses? Okay, talk about being snake bitten. Ted Williams was injured in a exhibition game that was played in 46 after the regular season because the Cardinals and the Dodgers played a 3-game National League playoff to decide who would win the National League championship. Okay, so you have Ted getting hit on the elbow, not being nearly 100%, only hit, I think, 200 for the World Series. Then in 1967, Tony Conigliaro gets hit, on August 18th. He's out. 1975, Jim Rice gets his hand broken before the World Series, and then in 1986, this is real trivia here. But Tom Seaver, who had been traded by the White Sox for Steve Psycho Lyons, can you imagine him coming out of the bullpen instead of Calvin Schiraldi at Shea Stadium? I think things might have turned out differently.
Now, do you think, and a lot of people may not believe it, or some do, the curse of the Bambino, do you think that had anything to do with that?
It had nothing to do with it. Basically, the reason that the team lost was they weren't managed, or, the front office wasn't as good as that of the Yankees or any number of other teams that won in the American League during those years. Tom Yawkey, I think, was a great owner. He rebuilt Fenway Park. He loved the team. He was a fan. He was probably too much of a fan. And then he hired some people who were not A-level executives, Pinky Higgins being chief among them. Once they finally gave the reins of control to Dick O'Connell, things turned around within a year and a half after giving after hiring him as the GM of the team. He was a great GM. So we have him to thank for the impossible dream and the 1975 team. But curses, look, if you applied that sort of logic to actual history, you'd have folks thinking that countries had lost wars because someone stubbed their toe or something. I mean, you really have to apply actual history to sports history, and I don't believe in the curse one bit.
Now, the Chicago Cubs, they had a curse also, or I know you don't believe in curses.
Well, they had an alleged curse of a billy goat. What they really had was it wasn't a curse, but they had the ownership of the Wrigley family, who, again, they did an okay job. They ran a beautiful ballpark, all-day games. Phil Wrigley, when he owned the team, really, he never wanted them to install floodlights because of concerns by the neighborhood for, the night games and everything, so he agreed to that. It was known as the largest daycare center in Chicago as a result. And they became really a beloved team because of the day game, because they were the last holdouts on that. But the reason for not winning a World Series is because, again, he didn't hire A-level people to run the team. Look at how quickly it took the new owners of the Red Sox, and we still call them the new owners after 16 years. But look how long it took them to win a World Series. It took them 2 years. So when new ownership comes in, look at the Krafts ownership of the Patriots, it has really everything to do with whether you succeed or fail.
It was 1918, before coming into this century, that the Red Sox had won a World Series, and then they've rattled off 4 since 2004. Yep. And, twice against the St. Louis Cardinals, which is kind of bittersweet because the Cardinals have beaten us, I remember, 67 and also in 46. So it's nice that the pendulum has swung in this direction. But you take a look at a team like the Cleveland Indians. I don't think there's too many people that are alive that remember the last time that they won a World Series.
No, you have to go back to 1948. You have people who could remember. I mean, certainly people who could remember it, but they were children. And the fact is that, of course, was a year when we came so close to having a streetcar World Series with the Red Sox playing instead of the Indians, because they played a one-game playoff at Fenway Park in which Red Sox manager Joe McCarthy started Denny Galehouse instead of Mel Parnell, and the rest, of course, as they say, is history. But, we came very close to having a streetcar World Series in Boston in 1948. But, no, I feel for the fans in Cleveland. I feel for the fans in Buffalo, for the Bills. I mean, any blue-collar sports town that's a real sports town, not, a glittery, place in Florida or something, but a place with smokestacks and factories and people who, sit in the bleachers for lousy teams and remain true blue for years and years. You want them at some point to win. I'll be very happy someday when the Indians finally bring it home, when the Bills finally bring it home in Buffalo, because those are long-suffering fans. And, and here, the Red Sox were the almost woulda, coulda, shoulda kids for decades. And now, I dare say we won't become complacent, but the fact is now we're kings of the hill, and it feels pretty darn good.
It is good. It's funny. The Bills were in the Super Bowl 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And one of the years when they lost to the Giants, they lost on a missed field goal. Scott Norwood, I believe it was.
I feel so bad for poor Scott Norwood because, he was one of the guys that got them there. It was not an easy kick. I think it was a 52-yard kick. And, yes, it was, wide right, I guess. But, Lord, I imagine that poor guy, whenever he's checking into a hotel somewhere, calling in for a reservation of a restaurant, someone at the other end of the line will say, well, was it wide right or wide left? And that's got to hurt.
I would think. He changed his name from Norwood to Dedham. which is a very good rivalry. That's a Thanksgiving rivalry that goes way back. I think almost as far back as Needham and Wellesley.
We have some of the oldest ones in the country. It's great. I mean, the fabric of sports here. Oh my Lord! Talk about a desert island topic. It's endless, and the high school football just. I think the oldest in the country, there's a rivalry in Connecticut that claims to be the oldest, but I think the oldest continual is Needham-Wellesley, which goes back to 1882.
Right. Now, who is probably the best sports personality that came out of Massachusetts?
Well, okay, you got to sort of divide personality and performer. So personality, I would find it hard to beat Mark the Bird Sidrich in terms of a...
Dan Ray Jr. and I just talked about him.
Compelling personality, born in Worcester, raised in Northborough, went to, I believe, Algonquin High School, and, as warm and colorful, first athlete to appear on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. I think it'd be pretty hard to not choose the Bird. In terms of competitor, there's one on the right at the very top of the mountain, Rocky Marciano.
Right. Yeah, Rocky, God rest. And both of them died young by accidents.
Way young.
Yep.
Rocky, of course, was 49 and as a professional. Interestingly, he lost as an amateur. I don't know how many times, but he lost several times as an amateur boxer. But as a professional, complete clean slate, 49-0, only heavyweight champion ever to achieve that.
Well, it's obvious reason. Amateurs don't get paid.
No, amateurs don't get paid. The story about him that I love is his mother would go to church in Brockton on the days of his bouts, and she'd be there by herself praying in church. And one day, I don't know whether it was a writer or a priest came up to her as she was about to leave and said, "That's so nice. You're here praying for your son." And she said, "Well," she said, "not really." She said, "I'm praying for his opponent to then get killed."
Oh, that's pretty neat. I like that. That would have a psychological effect on a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I'm sure it's absolutely true because they tested Marciano's punching ability over at MIT. They had him hitting a heavy bag with some sort of a device attached to it to measure the power of his punches. And it was off the charts. I don't think they expected them to be quite as hard as they were, but they, were, again, everything that you would expect them to be for, again, a guy who was, again, known as The Rock and retired undefeated.
Now, how would you compare his punches to a guy like Mike Tyson?
Well, that's a great comparison. I remember watching Tyson when he first came up, and just absolutely, after seeing him hit a guy maybe 2 or 3 times, just almost dropping my popcorn and going, whoa, hold on a second. This guy's like a human pile driver, and I think his problem was
his management.
He didn't have as good a trainer as Marciano did. Marciano had a guy named Charlie Goldman, who was a maestro, was just a master trainer, and kept him focused. And I think Tyson just got distracted, and certainly after the Douglas fight, after he was upset, he was never quite the same, but the young Mike Tyson was a Marciano style, just, absolutely brutal. And, just, you winced, even watching on television, you winced when he hit someone, because you can imagine how much that would hurt.
It's funny because, well, it was not funny, probably sad. When he changed managers and he went to Don King, it seemed like Tyson's career went downhill. Because who did he have in the corner? Was it Rooney?
I forget. I'm not as much a boxing guy. Boy, there's some people who are whizzes on boxing. I'm not sure, but the fact is that Don King, of course, you talk about Don King and Boston sports. There's a connection there, right?
No.
Well, the Sullivan family of the Patriots. Chuck Sullivan convinced his father to invest in, or have the Patriots organization invest in, the Michael Jackson Victory Tour back in 1984.
I remember that, and there was a failure.
And the Victory Tour was managed for the Jacksons by Don King. So, needless to say, the Sullivans lost money on the deal. I don't think either the Jacksons or Don King lost a penny. In fact, I think they did pretty well. They weren't even able to hold a concert at Foxborough Stadium because the town council in Foxborough voted it down. They didn't approve the permit. And that failure, that disaster for the Sullivans, was part and parcel of why they had to sell the team to Victor Kiam.
Right. Who was he made his money in electric shavers?
Well, I think, I forget where he made his money first, but he bought, he liked the company so much he bought it, right? Was it Remington, I think?
Remington,
anyway,
exactly. Yeah. Now, there was another partner with that. Was Kiam and Kraft partners at one time?
No. Kraft and Steve Karp owned.
That's right. Yeah.
The stadium, and then Bob was the one that ended up buying the team from James Bush Orthwine.
Okay. We're going to take a short...
There have been a few owners of that team. It's interesting, when you look back at Patriots history, the Sullivans did an amazing job just even getting the team and then having it survive as long as it did. There were 6 pro football teams in Boston prior to the arrival of the Patriots in 1960. So, this had never really been a pro football area. Now, of course, it's
you can't beat
it. One of the 2 or 3 great, football franchises of them all. I'd say only really the Steelers and the Niners are the other 2. And but the Sullivans and the Crafts, we give them a lot of credit. They're the bookends of the franchise.
And I tell you, the Kraft family's done a lot of spectacular things. It's
remarkable.
When we take a look at some of the greatest sports personalities in the history of sport, we were blessed to see people like Bobby Orr, Larry Bird, and Tom Brady.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, the fact is that now we not only have a performer Mount Rushmore, we have an ownership Mount Rushmore that almost becomes sort of a national deal. I mean, I'd put Bob Kraft on any NFL owner's Mount Rushmore along with the Rooneys and probably the Maras. That's pretty august company, and they deserve it.
They've done really, really well, and they seem like they're very active in the community. Richard, we're going to have to take a short break here at the bottom of the hour, and we'll be back. We're going to talk about Rocky Marciano one more point. I'm going to bring up the name Jersey Joe Walcott, and then we're going to talk more about the Boston Red Sox and their World Series victory. You're listening to WHAV 97.9. This is the Open Mic Show, and you can call in at 978-374-1900.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back. Get in on the action. Call 978-374-1900. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495.
It's 7:37.
WHAV is on Facebook. For quick access, visit whav.net and click on the Facebook icon.
AutoFair Subaru of Haverhill has been an active member in the community for years. It's proud to partner with great organizations like Veterans Northeast Outreach Center, Make-A-Wish Foundation, and Katydid Foundation of Haverhill. These selfless charities are vital to our community, and AutoFair takes great pride in helping. AutoFair Subaru encourages everyone to see what they can do to help make our city and the surrounding areas a better place for everyone. There's a list of supported charities at autofairsubaru.com.
Catch the wave!
Hi, it's Gary LaPierre. I worked for WHAV. It was brief. Long story. Tell you sometime. Anyway, become a WHAV member or renew your membership now. Just visit whav.net and click on the membership tab.
Wave weather!
Now your wave weather forecast for Haverhill in the Merrimack Valley. Upper 30s, partly cloudy skies, and about a 5 to 10 mile per hour northwest breeze tonight. Northwest near 8 to 16 tomorrow. Sunny skies, temperatures right around 50 degrees. Mostly clear, low 35 Tuesday night. And mainly sunny skies, highs around 57 for Wednesday. Your Halloween's looking pretty good. I'm WHAV meteorologist Brian Ivy. Your next wave weather in 30 minutes.
WHAV Open Mic!
From the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom, 97.9 WHAV FM presents the Open Mic Show with Bill Masick. Open Mic is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of Haverhill, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. Make your voice heard. Call 978-374-1900. That's 978-374-1900.
We're back here in the Open Mic Show. Bill Masick is on vacation tonight. This is Bill Ellis filling in. And on the line, we have Richard Johnson, the curator for the Sports Museum, New England Sports Museum, located in Boston. I mentioned the name Jersey Joe Walcott. As a kid, I had an uncle that was big into boxing. In fact, he bought me my first set of boxing gloves just before I got my butt whipped. No. And he showed me a picture. And Rocky Marciano had just hit Jersey Joe Walcott. And Walcott's face looked like it was so distorted and pushed to one side, I guess, from the power of Rocky Marciano. But, you know, there's one thing I didn't realize until tonight. Rocky Marciano was actually 5'11".
Yeah, I mean, he was very average size in terms of, you know, I mean, he was not a big guy, but, you know, the way I've described him to people is he was a piston of punishment and a sponge of suffering, in that I mean, you can call this a skill. You know, his skill as a boxer, he was not a finesse guy by any means, but he could absorb more punishment than any human being, you know, in a boxing ring could imagine. And just when any other boxer would have gone down or given up, he would, you know, just... He had a home run punch, you know. Basically, his knockout punch was really something to be very scared of. And that photo of Jersey Joe is a famous one, and it is very, you know, it's painful to look at. And it's no surprise that the state of Massachusetts issued the license plate KO to Marciano when he won his championship, and then they gave the plate TKO to his good friend, welterweight Tony DeMarco from the North End, who won the welterweight championship at the Garden in 1955. So the boxing heritage of Massachusetts is a very proud one, and I'd say those are the two guys, probably those two, and then also former heavyweight champion Jack Sharkey, too, would be on the list as well as really being the standard bearers.
Now, getting back to baseball, we had Dan Rea Jr. on the first hour of the show, and baseball is going to get more enhanced in Massachusetts when the Paw Sox come to Worcester in 2021. And they're kind of riding on a nice wave right now where baseball, with the popularity, I mean, since the 2004, where the Red Sox have had 4 World Series since then. And it's kind of a nice little touch to have them so close here in Massachusetts to watch. I know it's going to be a big loss for Pawtucket, but it's going to be a major boom for Worcester. And the new ballpark they're going to build and the infrastructure changes in the Kelly Square area. What do you see with the future of Worcester with this new team?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I feel bad for my friends in Pawtucket because they supported that team for many, many years, and I'm hoping they get another minor league team to move into McCoy Stadium. I mean, it won't be the same, but it'll be different. But I'm hoping baseball is still played there. As far as Kelly Square in Worcester, I was just there on Saturday night. Actually, I went to a friend's party on Green Street, right nearby, and that has got to be one of the 4 or 5 worst traffic intersections in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I imagine the Rubik's Cube that they're going to have to solve to build that ballpark there, and to not have folks pulling their hair out trying to get in and out of the place, is going to be getting folks in and out of the Kelly Square area on game days. I mean, I think it's going to be a real challenge. I'm sure they're going to meet it. I mean, they wouldn't. I mean, certainly the sponsors would not have invested all of the money they have so far, and the city wouldn't have invested all the money they have so far into bringing the team there if they didn't already have a game plan for that. But I'm going to be fascinated to see what it is, because right now, getting on and off 290 in Kelly Square is a real challenge, and it's the one intersection in the state where I don't think there are any traffic lights. It's just basically
there isn't. It's
stopping at stop signs, sort of pausing a little bit, or even just driving through them and hoping that they go through unscathed. I'm sure one of the big jobs in the city of Worcester is cleaning up the broken glass and plastic in Kelly Square every other day from the collisions there.
It is. I've been through that square many, many times, and as I said to Dan, you drive into it, and there's 3 other cars trying to get the same spot that you're in, and sometimes if I want to cut across directly, I can never make it. You get pushed off to the side. It's terrible, and I tell you, it will be well worth the millions of dollars that they're going to spend on infrastructure. Probably one of the best things I've ever seen any state do is the state of New Hampshire, when they took the tolls out up on the border, and they put the Easy Pass through. To me, it's made life so much easier, and the same thing's going to happen when they fix Kelly Square up for the new ballpark that's going to be going there. Now
I'm pleased that I feel bad for Pawtucket, but I think that if you turn the clock back about 4 years, there was thought I believe that there had been a bid put in for Worcester to get a casino. Ended up going to Springfield. That's fine. You know what? As a native of Worcester, I'd rather have a AAA ballpark be the beacon of our future than a casino. And because it fits in with the history of the city, there's a great sports history to Worcester. We actually had a major league team back in the 1880s. Not many folks are aware of that. And
what team was that?
But and we had minor league teams on and off over the years. In fact, it was the first managerial stop for a guy named Casey Stengel back in 1925. So there's considerable history there, and I think the city will support it in grand style. And the city itself, just the other day, was the subject of an NPR story that said it was the hippest sort of place to move to now, and it replaced Oakland and Hoboken as a sort of a place for young, up-and-coming professionals to move to. So, yeah, I was thrilled to hear that.
Now, you mentioned a major league team. What year was that?
1880, I believe it was 1880, 1881. The Worcester Brown Stockings was one of the names they were called. I think they might have been called the Ruby Legs too, but the Brown Stockings is the name that I've heard. And they played in a ballpark called the Oval, which was over near where Elm Park is.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there was an agricultural fairgrounds over there. I think it was bordered by Seaver Street and Elm Park, and that's where they played their home games, right over in the Highland Street area.
And what year was Casey Stengel through there?
Casey Stengel was the manager of the Worcester team in the Eastern League in 1925.
And where did he go, to the Mets?
Well, he ended up with the Mets, but he was the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, the Boston Braves, then went to the Yankees, and then ended up with the Mets.
Oh, quite a history there. Now, Richard,
Great history.
You've written quite a few books on sports. How many have you written total?
Well, I've co-authored or contributed to or written, if you added them all up, now 23, and my friend Glenn Stout and I have just written a book on the Patriots called The Pats, an illustrated history of the New England Patriots, that's being published by Houghton Mifflin on November 18th.
Oh, should be some interesting reading. Richard, we're going to take a short...
Well, it's fun, because it's the history, warts and all. I mean, we all know about the Super Bowl triumphs and everything, but their early history, to me, is the most fascinating part of their story. Because, boy, you talk about an underdog franchise. They were the underdog's underdog.
Yeah, it's funny. We tried to start talking about baseball, and we ventured off of the Boston sports because you know so much about everything. Let's talk about.
I'm not so sure about that, but yeah.
Well, you're a lot more knowledgeable than I am, that's for sure. But and I'm nowhere near your category. Trust me. If you want to talk about harness racing, I'll know a little bit about that. But
you know a little bit about that, and again, that was the 19th and early 20th century version of NASCAR, because for generations, we're really one of maybe the first 3 or 4 generations that didn't grow up on a farm. But folks 100 years ago were only a generation away from having grown up on a farm, and that's where that sport came from, if I'm not mistaken.
No, that's true. And the Reedville, Massachusetts, was the site of the first sub-2-minute mile, which was a milestone in harness racing, and that goes back to 1897. A horse by the name of Star Pointer did that, and at that time, that was one of the greatest feats in horse racing. Richie, we have to take
they had a big stand there. They had a grandstand that sat, I think, according to our friend Bob Temple, I think it sat almost 40,000 people.
It did, and they also had auto racing there, and I think there was a movie about the Civil War. Matthew Broderick was in, and they trained the troops there at Reedville. So that's how far back that track actually goes.
Yeah, that was where the African American regiment that was directed by Robert Gould Shaw, the famous memorial on Boston Common. That's where they drilled.
Exactly. We have to take a short break, and when we come back, I want to talk to you about that book that you've written that's about to come out. We're on the Open Mic Show here on WHAV 97.9 FM, and when we do return, we have a call on the line. I'd like to speak to Richard Johnson. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Open Mic!
Bill Masick and the Open Mic Show will be right back.
Show here on WHAV 97.9 FM, and we do have a caller, and let me see if I did this right. Hello, caller, are you out there tonight? Hello, did I do something wrong? The caller's gone? Did they leave? They may be, we don't know. Goodbye, caller. We were giving away a prize, too. No. Are you still there, Richard?
I'm here. I'm just waiting for the Publishers Clearinghouse to come to my front door. I mean,
That would be nice. What would you do if you hit that $1.6 billion Powerball? I think you would have probably bought a baseball team.
Well, yeah, maybe, or I think I would have bought some property in Ireland and, planned to spend a little time each year over there. It's fun to sit back and think of that. I mean, certainly when the jackpots were up last week, I bought about 5 tickets to each game. I normally play one play twice a week, and I'm doing that still, and it gives me pleasure because, my Lord, even if you hit for a smaller jackpot, it's still pretty good, but the odds, of course, are greater for me being hit by a bolt of lightning on my way to the convenience store to buy the tickets. So I'm not counting on it, but on the other hand, we can all dream, can't we?
I tell you, it's free. It's free to dream. you can't beat it.
The only place where I lose more is going to the racetrack, and of course that's harder to do these days since there are hardly any tracks in New England anymore. But I would routinely go to Suffolk or someplace, and I probably hold the record for getting 2/3 of trifectas, and I'd be just stupid enough not to box them. And anyway, so I helped to support them for a number of years, and of course it wasn't enough.
Well, I tell you, there's nothing like it when you're at the races and you handicap it properly. It's funny. There was a major gambler that came out of Beacon Hill, and he wagered at Foxborough Park, and he hit one night for $91,000, I think it was. And I said to him, I said, "You must have been excited winning that much money." He says, "I was excited because I handicapped it properly." And you talk about trifecta. He hit what was called a twin trifecta. He had to hit 2 trifectas in a row to get it. And he was the only one that did it. And the jackpot had built up to $91,000. And he took it home. And I know he had hit several other times before that. He was just a very smart guy when it came to looking at the horses and determining who he thought was good and who wasn't good. But, Richard, talk to me about your book.
Yeah, the Patriots book, my friend Glenn Stout and I ended up doing this because a few years ago when the Cubs won the World Series, we went to our publisher, Houghton Mifflin. We had written a book on the Cubs several years before, and we thought, well, it probably would be a good idea to do a revised edition now that they finally won a World Series. And then Houghton Mifflin got back to us and said, we'd rather have you guys do a new book. Would you like to write a history of the Patriots? And, and we agreed. Sure, we had collaborated on several team histories before, all in baseball, though. So there'd been the Red Sox, Yankees, Cubs, and the Dodgers. And the Patriots book, was our first foray into doing a football team history. I'd written a Patriots history before called the New England Patriots Yesterday and Today, a smaller format though. And, even though I'm not a big football guy, I love the Patriots because I grew up with them. I grew up with the AFL, with, the whole underdog persona of the team. And, the journey they've taken, I mean, you couldn't make it up. You could not make up Victor Kiam. You could not make up, the craziness involved with all the stadiums they played in prior to moving to Foxborough. They built that original Foxborough Stadium in less than 6 months. I mean,
it was Schaefer Stadium.
And of course, the one thing that remains from the legacy of sort of that original stadium is the traffic is still the worst traffic in the Western world on a game day. Getting in and out of that place was like getting into jail getting out of jail or getting into Yale. It's impossible.
It's interesting because the first stadium, I think, was Schaefer Stadium, correct?
It was called Schaefer Stadium. They were really pioneers in getting sponsorship, getting a corporate sponsor for a stadium. Now it's, sort of almost every new stadium has a corporate name slapped on it, but that's true. And then when that license agreement expired, they switched it to Sullivan Stadium, then to Foxborough Stadium.
And Foxborough Stadium currently sits on the old Foxborough racetrack, the old harness track that was...
It does, and the fact is that when they were looking for space, they had also looked at Neponset in Boston, and there's actually, and we have a picture of this in our book, there was a model made of a sports facility in the Neponset section of Dorchester that was planned to host all 4 teams. Now, don't tell me how they were going to do hockey and basketball and baseball and football in one stadium. I think they had a playing surface that would roll in and out on wheels. I mean, it was one of the crazier things that I've even ever heard of. But the fact is that they appointed a stadium authority in Boston with the idea of doing that, and of course it never came to pass. The Patriots played that one year, their very first year in the NFL. They played at Harvard Stadium, and then they finally, got the property in Foxborough. I think they worked with E.M. Lowe because he was involved with the harness track there, who helped them to get the land. And, of course, as they say, the rest is history.
Now, the Neponset area, did Whitey Bulger own any land there? Because I know he utilized some of that land.
No, he had some of the waterfront property that he appropriated for some of his old friends.
Yes. Richard, now you're the curator of the Sports Museum in Boston. We got a couple of minutes to go. Can you tell us a little bit about that, the hours and so forth?
I'd be very happy to. Yeah, the Sports Museum is at TD Garden. So we're right at North Station, so it's certainly easy for folks coming in on the train, especially from Haverhill, just get right off at North Station, and we're right there. We're open every day from 10 to 4. It's always good to call ahead or to check on the computer, because sometimes we can be closed if there's a concert set up, and there's a lot happening at the Garden. So it's always good to check first. But we're right in the TD Garden. We're on levels 5 and 6, which are the levels of the luxury seating and suites, and our displays sort of surround that entire area. So we have over 1,200 artifacts on display. We have any number of framed items on display, paintings, photographs. Statues by Armand LaMontagne are up on the 9th floor, which is also part of our guided tour. And, what I want to emphasize is the fact that we're probably the only museum in town where your paid admission gets you a guided tour. So it's an hour-long tour. It takes you through the museum. During the summertime, we also throw an arena tour in as well. So that makes the tour roughly an hour and a half during the summertime. It's harder to do it during the season because the building is so busy. But that hour tour is a bargain, and again, we give you a little bit of everything. We're creating exhibits now on the Red Sox World Series triumph, so we try to keep up to date, but we also have displays on harness racing, you had mentioned before, on the Boston Braves, on some of the football teams that had preceded the Patriots in town. So there's a little bit of everything, and, the real pleasure I take is when someone's gone through the museum and they profess not to be a sports fan, but they were really interested in what we presented them, that it was engaging and compelling for them.
Well, I've been there several times, and I tell you, it's very, very enjoyable. And it's located at 100 Legends Way in Boston, which is the TD Bank Stadium, or basically the old Boston Garden, I guess.
Yeah, the TD Garden, yep.
Right. And I tell you, it's a must-see. Well, we've had Richard Johnson, the curator of the Sports Museum from Boston, on the phone. And, Richard, I got to have you back because I could talk to you for hours about various sports in Boston and so forth. And there's a lot that I didn't get an opportunity to talk to you about because I wanted to talk to you about the old stadium of Huntington Avenue grounds before they went to Boston, Fenway Park in 1912. Well, you've been listening to the WHAV 97.9. This is the Open Mic Show. And again, Richard, thank you very much for being on the show. And we'll definitely have you back.
Hope to be back on it soon, okay?
We'll have you back on, definitely. Thank you, Richard.
Perfect.
And thank you, Haverhill, for listening. And have yourself a good night.
Open Mic!
Join Bill Masick live on the Open Mic again next Monday night at 6. The Open Mic Show is brought to you in part by Smith Motor Sales of April, 420 River Street, exit 48 off 495. The opinions expressed on the Open Mic Show are not necessarily those of 97.9 WHAV FM, its underwriters, or affiliated stations. The Open Mic Show came to you from the Edwin V. Johnson Newsroom.